We begin the Gemara today on the bottom of Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis, the last line on the bottom of the Amud. The Gemara began discussing the lav of loisis gaidedu. The simple pshat is that it's talking about not to make a wound as a result of a grief for a person that passes away. But the Gemara darshan before, Reish Lakish brought that the taich of loisis gaidedu means not to create agudais, different groups within Klal Yisrael that are fulfilling mitzvahs, or they apply isurim differently. And therefore he asked him, regarding the Mishnah where it says, Megillah Nikras, that there are different dates to read the Megillah, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Aleph, Tezvav, why is that not an issue with Loisis Gaidedu? And Rabbi Yechanan is arguing with Reish Lakish about this, and Rabbi Yechanan will now ask Reish Lakish from our Mishnah here, where we bring the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel regarding the Tzaras Erva. So again, the last line at the bottom of the page. Fragt the Gemara, v'ho Beis Shammai matirin atzares lachim. Beis Shammai say that the tzaris of the erva are allowed to get married, are allowed to do yibum with a brother, or Beis Hillel oisrim. And Beis Hillel say it's not allowed. So therefore, you have the same issue. You have a group of Klal Yisrael that's doing like Beis Shammai, a group of Klal Yisrael that's doing like Beis Hillel, and this is regarding a very serious matter, a very serious isser, an isser erva of koris. So how could you have this argument which turns Klal Yisrael into agudis? So the Gemara answers, Mi savris, do you think asu Beis Shammai kedivreim, that Beis Shammai actually did like their opinion was? Lo yasu Beis Shammai kedivreim. Beis Shammai did not follow their own opinion. So therefore, it's no question from our Mishnah that there's an issue of loisis gaidedu, that there's agudis. But Rabbi Yechanan disagrees with this, and he says, asu v'asu. They did do exactly like their opinion is. And there would be an issue of loisis gaidedu. And therefore, Rabbi Yechanan holds that from our Mishnah, there's a proof that it must be, that it's not an issue. So this is another machlokes here that comes out now between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yechanan regarding our Mishnah, whether the Talmidei Beis Shammai actually followed according to their opinion, they did so b'poil, that the Tzaras Erva can get married to the brother or not. So the Gemara now brings that we find that Rav and Shmuel argued about this. Ubeplukte the Rav and Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel argued about the same subject. The Rav Amar lo yasu Beis Shammai kedivreim. Rav said that Beis Shammai did not follow b'poil according to their opinion. Shmuel Amar asu v'asu. Shmuel says they did like their opinion. The Tzaras Erva does yivum. Ema, so the Gemara now asks, what's the pshat in this machlokes? Whether Beis Shammai will follow through with their opinion or not. What are we speaking about? Are we speaking about before there was a baskel? So Rashi here brings, there's a sugi in Erevin that speaks about the machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, and a baskel came out and said that the halacha is like Beis Hillel. So if we're speaking about before that baskel came out, my time with the mandama lo yasu. What's the reason of the opinion that says that at that point Beis Shammai did not follow their opinion? Why not? There was no baskel, there's no reason that Beis Shammai shouldn't do like what they felt is right. So what are we speaking about after there was a baskel that said that halacha is like Beis Hillel? If so, my time with the mandama also. So what's the reason of the opinion that says that they still follow their own opinion and not like the halacha which the baskel said, which is like Beis Hillel? So the Gemara gives two answers, whether we're speaking about before a baskel came out, that the halacha is like Beis Hillel, or after. If you want, I'll answer you kaidem baskel. We're speaking about before there was a baskel. Or I could answer you that it's after the baskel. So either the machlokes of Rav and Shmuel here is before the baskel, the Beis Hillel ruba. And the case here is that the Talmidim of Beis Hillel are Raiv, and therefore if the Raiv is that Beis Hillel, so you have to always follow the halacha like the Raiv. So now what's the argument between Rav and Shmuel, whether Beis Shammai followed through with their own opinion, or they did like Beis Hillel? So the opinion that says that they did not follow their own opinion, so the reason is the Beis Hillel ruba, even before a baskel, but since the Talmidim of Beis Hillel were the majority, so la halacha they followed like the Talmidim of Beis Hillel. So the opinion that says that they did follow their own opinion, even though Beis Hillel were the majority. When do you follow the majority? That's if the argument is between two people, or in this case the Talmidim of Beis Hillel and Talmidim of Beis Shammai that are equals. But over here, Beis Shammai mechaded ditvei. Beis Shammai students were sharper than the Talmidim of Beis Hillel, and therefore in this case you would paskin according to the minority. And therefore Beis Shammai kept their opinion even though Beis Hillel was the majority. So this is all a pshat if we're speaking about before the baskel. Or the argument between Rav and Shmuel is even after the baskel came out to say that the halacha is like Beis Hillel. So the opinion that says that Beis Shammai from that point forward did not follow through with their own opinion, the hanafke baskel, because the baskel came out to say that the halacha is like Beis Hillel. The opinion that says that they did still follow their own opinion, Rabbi Shuahi. This is Rabbi Shua's opinion. The Amar Rabbi Shua said, Ein mashgichim bebaskel. We don't pay attention to a baskel, and therefore, even though the baskel said the halacha is like Beis Hillel, doesn't matter. Beis Shammai said we're still going to follow our own opinion. You have to paskin according to what we understand Torah here in this world, and you don't follow a baskel. There's a Tosfos here about this, about Ein mashgichim bebaskel, and Tosfos says the chiddush of Rabbi Shua's opinion is, even though we know b'chlal that you don't follow a baskel, and that you go according to the way you understand the halacha of Torah here in this world, but according to most opinions, there are certainly cases where you do follow a baskel, like over here. If the baskel comes and says that the halacha is like Beis Hillel, which are anyways derived, so in such a case you should follow the baskel. The baskel is not telling you something that's different than what you would expect the rules should be. Or in a case where the baskel is clearly telling you that the halacha is like Beis Hillel and for no other reasons. Tosfos brings that you have one case where the baskel came out and it was just for the honor of Rabbi Eliezer. That's the baskel came to give him his honor, to say that the halacha is like him. In such a case, you don't follow a baskel. But when a baskel comes and says that the halacha is like Beis Hillel, you should follow it. That's what it's mashma in other places. The chiddush here, according to Rabbi Shua, is Ein mashgichim bebaskel, ein mashgichim, meaning you never pay attention to a baskel, even in a case where the baskel makes sense. It's according to the Roiv, which is Beis Hillel. Nevertheless, you don't follow a baskel. So that's the opinion that says that even after the baskel, Beis Shammai still follow through with their own opinion. Okay, so this is the conclusion here regarding the machlokes, if over here Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, whether Beis Shammai followed through with their own opinion or not. So now the Gemara will come back to the original discussion, which is the issue of loises gaidu that the Rish brought up. So the Gemara, also, so now according to the opinion, which is Rish Lakish, that says, or actually it was Rabbi Yochanan that said, that also that they did follow their own opinion. Karinan kan loises gaidu. Why wouldn't we apply here the lav of loises gaidu, which means loisasu agudes agudais, not to create groups in Klal Yisrael that have their isurim differently. So the Gemara says, Amar Abaye. Abaye explained that this lav of loises gaidu doesn't always apply. There's a limitation to exactly when there's this issue of creating two groups in Klal Yisrael. When is loises gaidu an issue? If you have two bezdins in the same city, and it's one bezdin that is paskening like Beis Shammai, another bezdin in the same city paskens like Beis Hillel, that's an issue. But if you have two bezdins that are in two different cities and one is paskening like Beis Hillel and the other like Beis Shammai, then less lamba. That's an issue that doesn't bother us. So therefore, he's saying that the issue of loises gaidu does not apply over here. But the Gemara right away asks on this, Amalei Rava. So Rava says, how does that answer regarding what we asked regarding Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel? Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, but regarding Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, kishtei batei dinim bi'ir achas. There are two batei dinim in the same city. The Adami, they're compared to two batei dinim in the same city. You have Talmidim of Beis Hillel and Talmidim of Beis Shammai in the same city. And one is paskening one way and the other is paskening another way. So how could you say that there's an issue only if it's in two cities? Okay, but in the same city, again, there's no issue if it's in two cities. But if it's in the same city, there's an issue of loises gaidu. And the Talmidim of Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai live in the same city. Elo Amar Rava, so therefore Rava says that the klal of when we apply this lav of loises gaidu is actually even more limited. Ki amrin and loises gaidu. When is there an issue that you're making Klal Yisrael, you're dividing the Yidden into two groups? Kagaim bezdin b'yirachas. When you have just one bezdin in one city, plag moerin kedivir Beis Shammai. Half of the bezdin is paskening like Beis Shammai, or plag moerin kedivir Beis Hillel, and half of the bezdin is paskening like Beis Hillel. Avoshtei batei dinim b'yirachas. But if you have two different bezdins, even if they're in the same city, less lamba, then it's not an issue. So therefore over here, Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai, different bezdins, they're talmidim of different yeshivas, so to speak. So therefore, it's not an issue of loises gaidu. This is the answer of Rava. Okay, now Tosfos here points out an interesting thing regarding the case of the Megillah. The fact that you read Megillah in a Kras, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, seemingly that's in one city. And l'chayre, there's no two separate bezins in this one city here that we're speaking about. We're talking about the fact that in one city, some people read it Yud Aleph and some people Yud Beis, or actually in a year that it comes out that they read Yud Aleph, others read it in Yud Daled, so it's all in the same city. It's certainly a question according to Abaya. How is Abaya attempting to answer regarding the Megillah? Tosfos is mechadish here, that when it comes to the Bnei HaKfarim, the people of the villages that read the Megillah on Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, or Yud Gimel, they actually don't read the Megillah inside the city. They read it in their own villages. Chachamim gave them the ability to be makdim for the reason that it says in Masechta Megillah, but they actually don't read it in the city. They read it themselves in the Kfarim, and therefore it's not at all in the same city. That's Tosfos' answer. Other Rishonim say that really, even though the Gemara never clearly answers regarding Megillah, the Gemara here is only answering regarding what it asked over here, the Machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in our Mishnah. But regarding Megillah, it's really not a question at all. Because over here, it's not the pshat that there's some kind of machlokes and one opinion disagrees with the other, and then you have these two camps and each one follows their own understanding and they argue with the other one. The fact that there's the atakana, that people of Kfarim read Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, people of the cities read Yud Daled, and the Krachim Ukaf and Chaymer read B'Tezvav. They all agree to each other. There's no machlokes here. Each one has maneihem. There's the times that everyone has to read. So there's l'chatchila no issue of the fact that they're reading in different times. That's the teretz that some Rishonim say. This may be dependent on what's really the source of the whole reason of Leitus Gaididu, not to divide the Torah and the Yisurim of the Torah into different groups in Klal Yisrael. Rashi before said the issue is that it's damya l'shtei Torahs, that it's compared to two Torahs. If that's the issue, that it's compared to two Torahs, this might actually be a case even regarding the Megillah, even though they're not really arguing with one another. But the fact is, it comes to the Yom Tov of Purim, and it's celebrated on different dates, and it looks like two Torahs. But the Rambam says the issue of Leisus Gaididu is that it brings machlokes in. The fact that you have a machlokes, and you allow one group to follow one opinion, another group to do another opinion, so this just perpetuates machlokes. You have to come to a psak halacha where everyone paskins like one opinion. So how could you have these machlokes and then they're dividing into groups? If that's the case, then when you get to Megillah l'chatchila is not a question. There's no machlokes here. It's just different times for different people that Chachamim were misaken, that there's more than one time for reading the Megillah regarding Purim. Let's continue in the Gemara. The Gemara now will continue regarding the discussion that it began before, whether benegay to this inyan over here of Leitus Gaididu. Yeah, there's a few different things that come up in the Gemara, but meanwhile we're continuing about Leitus Gaididu. Tashama, so it says, and the Brai says follows: in the city of Rabbi Eliezer, they would go and chop wood. To make from this wood charcoal or coals, b'Shabbos, on Shabbos. For what purpose? Lasis barzel, that then with this fire they can go and make a sharp piece of metal to use it for a knife. For what? For a bris milah. This is Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, that when it comes to the fact that milah is deiches Shabbos, it's not only the mitzvah itself, but even machshirei milah, the machshirei mitzvah, all the steps that have to be done to prepare for the mitzvah are also deiches Shabbos. So that was in the city of Rabbi Eliezer. And Tosfos adds what this means is that the Brisa is saying that it's not only that bidi evet, if they forgot to prepare everything before Shabbos, they would go ahead and do this. L'chatchila, they left it to be done on Shabbos. It's deiches Shabbos, and therefore there's no issue for it to be done on Shabbos. They left it l'chatchila this way. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, now in the city of Rabbi Yossi, that is, in the city of Rabbi Yossi Aglili, they would eat chicken with milk. Even though we don't pass in this way, but Rabbi Yossi Aglili darshan that because of the Isra of Basa B'chalav, the Torah says, so that only refers to the meat of an animal that has milk, not regarding to a chicken. There's no milk there. In the city of Rabbi Eliezer, there the minig was that they prepared all the things, all the preparations for mili even on Shabbos. But in the city of Rabbi Kiva, they did not prepare this. The Tanya, as we learned in the Braisa, the rule that Rabbi Kiva said is, and even to prepare for a milah that could be done before Shabbos, it does not push off Shabbos. So now, what's the Gemara's question? So here you have agudais. there's a group in Klal Yisrael that follows like Rabbi Eliezer, and a group of Klal Yisrael that follows like Rabbi Kiva, that it's not Doiche Shabbos. So the Gemara right away says, what kind of question is this? V'hai mai tu yufta? What's this question? Mekaymis shani. As we just said before, if it's in different cities, different places, it's certainly not an issue of agudis, even according to Abaya. Fragt the Gemara, udekari la makari la. The one that asks this question, what was he thinking by asking this question? Answers the Gemara, what he thought was, Mishum chumre de Shabbos k'mokem echad. Since we're speaking about an Inyan of Chilul Shabbos, and there's machlokes whether this is Doiche Shabbos or it's still a Chilul Shabbos, so this is a very severe matter. So therefore I would think over here, even if it's two different cities, it's similar to what we usually consider to be agudis in the same city. And therefore he thought that it should be a problem, that in one city here, this is Chilul Shabbos, in the next city this is considered to be a mitzvah. Kamash Malam. So therefore, the answer here is that no, even though it's an issue of Chilul Shabbos, the fact that it's in two different cities doesn't bother us. Toshama, another ayah to this, or a question on this, that Rabavo, Ki Ikla Lasir Rabbi Shua ben Levi. When Rabavo came to the city of Rabbi Shua ben Levi for Shabbos, have a metal tel shrage. He would on Shabbos move a candle that was extinguished, and even though this would be considered muktzah, anything if it was burning. When Shabbos came in, this candle was burning, so from the time of Ben Hashmashis, it was not designated to move around, it should be muktzah. But Rabavo would be metaltal this shrage, this candle, because he was going according to Rab Shimon's opinion, and Rab Shimon does not hold muktzah in such a case. Rab Shimon has a much lighter opinion of muktzah. In majority of cases, he doesn't hold of muktzah at all. That was when he was by Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Then when he came to the city of Rabbi Yechanan, so there on Shabbos he did not move the candle when it extinguished on Shabbos, because he followed the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that there is muktzah. So now what's the question? Here he's following one opinion, here in the other city he's following another opinion, so there's different groups over here in Klal Yisrael. Something said over here you go like one and like the other. Again, the Gemara says, "V'hai my kushya." But what's the question here? V'loy amrina. Didn't we already say mekaymis shani? If it's in different places, it's different. There's no issue if it's not the two opposite behaviors regarding Shabbos in two different cities. So the Gemara says, no. Over here, there's actually a completely different question, and this is a question that's not really related to the subject of agudis, but it's b'chlal a question on Rabavo himself. Anan hochi kamrina. This is a question b'chlal on Rabavo. Heichi avad hocha. How is it that Rabavo in one place does one way and in another place he does another way? I mean, either this is Chilul Shabbos or not. How is he changing his hanhage in the place that he was if he has to make up his mind for himself? Is this Chilul Shabbos or not? Answers the Gemara, Rabavo Rabbi Shua ben Levi svirile. Really, Rabavo held like Rabbi Shua ben Levi, which holds that like Rab Shimon, and therefore there's really no muktzeh here. So that's why over there he was allowed to move it on Shabbos. That's how we paskin. But when he came to the city of Rabbi Yechanan, he didn't move the candle. Mishum kvayded Rabbi Yechanan. Out of honor of the Rav of the city, Rabbi Yechanan, that held like Rabbi Yehuda, he was machmir and muktzeh. So out of honor of Rabbi Yechanan, he did not move the candle. But really he holds that muktzeh is not an issue like Rabbi Shimon's opinion. Fragt the Gemara, well, how is it going to help if he himself is going to try to give the honor to Rabbi Yechanan and not move the candle? But v'ayikish shama, that he has a servant, he has the people that came, the servants that came with him, and they knew that he in his home always was not careful with muktzeh because he passed like Rabbi Shimon. So you hear in the city of Rabbi Yechanan, they're not going to be careful with this muktzeh. Answers the Gemara, the Maida Leila Shame. He let his shamoshim, the ones that were serving him, know that now we're in the city of Rabbi Yechanan, and here we have to be machmer with muktzeh, and therefore you should not move the candle. So the Gemara weiter Toshemas, and now this raya here of the Gemara will be regarding the discussion we had before, whether in this machlokes here in our Mishnah, regarding the tzara serva, if you could get married to a Yevam or not, if, what happened here? Beis Shammai kept their opinion, they followed through with their opinion, or they did like Pisil. So the Gemara brings a raya for this. Afal pi she'elu oisrim ve'elu matirim. Even though these were oiser, these say that it's forbidden, and these say that it's allowed. But nevertheless, le'nimnu beis Shammai melisa noshim mi bisilul ve'lebisil mi beis Shammai. They did not hold themselves back of getting married to wives one from another. That's what the Braisa says here. Or that's, again, this is actually going back to our Mishnah. The Gemara will soon bring a Braisa, but this is going back on our Mishnah. Frag the Gemara now. If you're going to say that, like Rabbi Yochanan said before, like Rav said before, that Beis Shammai had their opinion, but Bepoil, they did like Beis Hillel. If so, that explains why they did not hold themselves back from getting married one to another. But if you're going to say that Beis Shammai still kept their own opinion, why did they not hold themselves back why did Beis Hillel not hold themselves back of getting married to wives that come from Beis Shammai? According to Beis Hillel, what Beis Shammai is doing is Mama She'isa Erva of Kodesh, and the children are Mamzerim. How could Beis Hillel allow to get married to a daughter that was born from this, that she's a Mamzeres? It's not the Gemara says. Now, regarding the fact that Beis Shammai did not prevent themselves of allowing to get married to the children that were born from Beis Hillel, so that we can understand. According to Beis Shammai's opinion, what Beis Hillel is doing is a lav, because they hold that this tzaras erve really is up for yibum or yibum or chalitza, can't get married to anybody. And Beis Hillel says, no, they can't do yibum, they can go get married to whoever they want. According to Beis Shammai, this is a lav. So therefore, the children that are born from this is a lav are not mamzerim. But the fact that it says in the Mishnah that Beis Hillel allowed their children to get married to wives coming from Beis Shammai, why did they not hold themselves back from this? According to Beis Hillel's opinion, what Beis Shammai is doing, allowing the tzaras erva to get married to a brother for yibum, that's mamash ha'isakaris, and the children are mamzerim. Answers the Gemara, if you're going to argue now and say that maybe Kisavri Beis Hillel holds the Beis Hillel holds actually that even from a chayve krisis there's even it's not, the children are not mamzerim. But is that true though? And the Rashi, I believe, brings over here, that according to Beis Hillel, we would say, when are you a mamzer? Only if the relationship is a case of chiyuv Mrs. Bezdin. Rashi brings a mother, chamaisai, kalasai, but not a chayve krisis will not be a mamzer. Maybe that's what Beis Hillel holds. So therefore, Beis Shammai didn't hold themselves back of allowing to get married to Beis Hillel because it's only a chiyuv lav, and Beis Hillel didn't hold themselves back of getting married to Beis Shammai because it's a chiyuv kodesh. And either way, the children are not mamzerim. But the Gemara now brings that this is not true because V'hamar Rabbi Elazar said, even though Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argued regarding the tzara of an erve, whether she has the mitzvah of yibum or it's a chiyuv kodesh. But Maidim, what they do agree on is they agree that a mamzer is only of someone that is an issa erve and the erve is a kodesh. So they're not lav and not chiyav Mrs. Bezdin. Kodesh is a mamzer. So therefore, our question still remains: how would Beis Hillel allow their children to marry from Beis Shammai if, according to them, what Beis Shammai is doing is issa kodesh and the children are mamzerim? Answers the Gemara: Lalav shma mina lo yasu. So doesn't this mean that from here we have a raya that it must be that Beis Shammai did not follow through with their opinion? They did like Beis Hillel. Answers the Gemara, lo, it's not a raya. Lo masu. Really, I can tell you the Beis Shammai did follow their own opinion. But what does the Mishnah mean? The Maidilahu Parshi. In a case where there was a tzaras erva and these are children from a tzaras erva, and Beis Shammai saw that Beis Hillel wants to marry from these children, they let them know that according to your opinion, you're not allowed to marry this woman. So therefore, Beis Hillel were confident that they can go and get married from Beis Shammai, because if there'll be a problem, the Talmidei Beis Shammai will let them know. It's logical to say that this is the pshat in our Mishnah, that they let them know. The Ketani Seifa, in the next case of the Mishnah, it says, Kol hataris v'chol hatmeis shahayu elim b'tarim v'elim b'tamin. You had taris and tmeis, and there was arguments between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. One holds it was tar, the other holds that it's tameh. And Rashi actually brings over here that the kavanah of the Mishnah is that Beis Hillel were the ones that were machmer regarding taris, and they said it's tameh, and Beis Shammai is the ones that were mekel, and they said that it's tar. Okay, this is the way it's going to fit with the continuation of the pshat of the Gemara here, as we'll see. Tosfos has a different pshat, but we'll go with Rashi's pshat. So now, lo nimnu oisim taris elo gabi elo. They did not hold themselves back of using vessels from one another and using it for taris, for things that have to be tar. That's what the next part of the Mishnah says. Now, if you're going to say that Beis Shammai would let Talmidei Beis Hillel know that this is something which, according to your, actually the Talmidei Beis Shammai let the Talmidei Beis Hillel know that according to your opinion, this is something which is tamei. So that's Mishum Achalei Nimnu. That's why they didn't hold themselves back of using Kalim from Beis Shammai, because they will rely on them telling them. But if you're going to say that they did not let them know, so then Bishlai mi Beis Shammai mi Beis Hillel lo nimnu. The Tmei is the Beis Hillel, the Beis Shammai Taris. So that's understood because Beis Hillel were the ones that were more machmer. So what could go wrong for Talmidei Beis Shammai? If anything, the Beis Hillel is more machmer, so they're not going to come to end up using something which is Tameh. But in the reverse, Ela Beis Hillel mi Beis Shammai. But that Beis Hillel should go and use something from Beis Shammai, and over here, according to Rashi, Beis Shammai were more lenient. Things that Beis Hillel held with Tameh, according to Beis Shammai's opinion, is Tameh. So Lamalei Nimnu, Tar is the Beis Shammai, Le Beis Hillel, Tameh is Nanu. The things that according to Beis Shammai are Toir, according to Beis Hillel are Tameh. So Ella, what's the answer? Ella lav the Maidi Lahu. Must be that the reason why they didn't hold themselves back is because the Talmidei of Beis Shammai let them know. So therefore they knew that they can trust them. Shmami no. So this proves that that's the pshat and the reisha as well regarding marrying the children from Beis Shammai. They weren't concerned about atzaras erve. This is a chi of krisis because the Talmidim of Beis Shammai let them know. Fragt the Gemara, why is the Gemara saying that I'll prove to you from the Sefer of the Mishnah that it must be that they let them know? That's the only pshat you could say in the Reisha as well. Why is the Sefer of the Mishnah any stronger than the Reisha that you're proving this from the Sefer regarding the cases of Tumah and Tara? Answers the Gemara, the reason we're proving it from the Sefer is as follows. Ma'al the Teimah Tzara Kala Isle. I would think that when it comes to this case of a Isser, Karis, of a Tzara of an Erve, this is something that there's a rumor about this. People know about this. I would say that over there, the Pshat and the Reish of the Mishnah, why Beis Hillel did not hold themselves back of marrying from Beis Shammai, is because this is something that would be known. Everybody would know about what happened, that this is a daughter of a Tzara Erve, and therefore Beis Hillel was not concerned. So therefore, Kamash Malan, the Gemara is bringing you from the Sefer, just like in the Sefer, there is no koil about the Kalim of Tumah and Tara. And over there, the point is that Talmidei Beis Hillel are relying on Beis Shammai letting them know. So too, in the Reisha, it's not about the fact that there's a koil and you're relying on the koil to know, but Beis Hillel trusted Beis Shammai themselves to let them know. Now the Gemara comes back to explain a statement that we brought in the middle of this discussion. Here, Gufe, so we mentioned before, Omer Abba Lazar, Ava Bishanechlaku, Beis Shammai Beis Hillel B'tzares. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argued regarding the tzara of an erve. Maidim, they both agree, She'ein mamze ela mimi, she'isura yisa erve, v'onish kares. They agree that a mamze is only from someone that's born from an issa erve, which is kares. So the Gemara will now explain what's the connection over here to this idea here. They're arguing about tzara. And they agree that a mamza is only from a Isakaris. What's the chiddush that they agree, even though they argue regarding a tzara? Frakti Gemara, man maidim. What exactly is the chiddush over here? Who are we saying is being maided to whom? Ileme Beis Shammai le Beis Hillel. If the point here is that Beis Shammai agree to Beis Hillel that only for a karis, will there be a mamzer pshita? I mean that's obvious. Bnei chayav elaven ksherin inu. Yeah, over here in this case, according to Beis Hillel, so the issue over here is only a Isser Lav. And there's no, according to Beis Shammai that is. According to Beis Shammai, there's only a Isser Lav that she's supposed to do Yibum, and if she goes and gets married to anybody else, it's only going to be a Isser Lav. So obviously, if it's only a Isser Lav, Kshedim, it's kosher. Why does it have to say that they're Maida? What's he trying to say about Maida? According to Beis Shammai, it's obvious. And in this case, according to their opinion, if this Yevamos gets married to anybody else, this Tzara Serva gets married to anybody, it's only in Isser Lav, and there should be no Mamzeris here at all. Elo, Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai. Elamai, what is it coming to say? That Beis Hillel are the ones that are made to Beis Shammai, that only from an Isser Karis is there a Mamzer. As if over here, in this case, it's not. But Frekta Gemara, Behi Gufa Chayav Krisisi. Over here, in this case, according to Beis Hillel, what Beis Shammai is allowing is a Isakaris. Over here, in this case, it is going to be a Mamzer. So what is Rabbi Lazar saying? That they're going to be maided that only by a Isakaris, then it's going to be a Mamzer. As if this case is not. This case is. So Mimanav Shach, this maided that he's saying here doesn't make any sense. If it's Beis Shammai being maided to Beis Hillel, so according to Beis Shammai, this is a Isalav. If it's Beis Hillel being maided to Beis Shammai, but in this case it's actually a Isakaris, so what exactly are they being maided to? Answers the Gemara, Lo'olam Beis Shammai leBeis Hillel. The point here is that Beis Shammai is being maided to Beis Hillel, that in this case, according to their opinion, this is only a Issa Lav that Beis Hillel is allowing, and therefore they will be maided that it's not going to be a mamzer. And what's the chiddush here with this? To exclude of what Rabbi Akiva said, the Amar Rabbi Akiva said, Yesh mamzer mechayave lavin. That you could have a mamzer from a Issa Lav, not only from a Issa Kares, but even from a Issa Lav. This is Rabbi Akiva's opinion. We mentioned before Rabbi Akiva holds regarding Issa Lav 2 points. Number one, Kiddushin is not teifes for Issa Lav, and number two, the children will be mamzerim. Kamash Malon, the Ein Mamzer Mechayav Elav. So that was a chiddush according to Beis Shammai, that even though according to their opinion what Beis Hillel is doing is a lav, nevertheless the children will not be mamzerim. Going back to the point we spoke about before, whether in this machlokes of the Tzaras Erve did Beis Shammai follow through with their opinion, Asu Kedivreim, or Lo Yasu Kedivreim. They did not follow through with their opinion, and B'Poyel they did like Beis Hillel. Tashema, so it says in a Braisa, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argued regarding the tzara of an erve, whether you have yibum or it's a Issa Kares. And the Braisa here brings a list of other things that they argued in matters of ishus, in matters that are going to be negeya to Eishesish and to Mamzeris and so on. Uba'achayes. They also argued regarding sisters. This goes to the Mishnah of 4 brothers, that 2 of them were married to 2 sisters, and then they both passed away. And now, midrabanan, you can't do a yibum to any of these sisters because it's a chais zikukasai. We add this in Daf Tesam with Beis. And the machlokes there between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is what happens b'di'evid. If one of the brothers went and did yibum, is that yibum, could he stay married to her b'di'evid? We'll see, Mitzvah Shem will get there. Then beget yashon. They argue about a get yashon, which is a case where a person wrote a get for his wife, but he didn't give it to her yet. Before he gave it to her, he was with her privately, and therefore we're afraid that he may have had a relation with her, and therefore he can't use this get anymore. And there's machlokes about that. And they're arguing about a case of Safek Shesish. The first pshat in Rashi here is that this is speaking about the Ketana, which we spoke about many times before, that's only married midrabanan. Her brothers married her off, and she could do miyun. She could reject the marriage. And there's machlokes between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai regarding this miyun. Rashi has another pshat, you can look over here in Rashi, there's a big arichas in Rashi. Person that divorced his wife, he already gave her the get. And then velonna imoi bepundik, she went and she stayed with him in a pundik together in an inn. Such a case could be because they were together, so therefore they had a relation together. That may be considered to be a kedushin, and she may need a get again. So that's a machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel if they need a get again. Another issue they argued regarding matters of ishus, bekesef or b'shava kesef, regarding being mekadesh a woman with kesef or the value of kesef. How much is that? This is the beginning of the Masechta Kedushin. B'pruta or b'shava pruta. So Beis Hillel says that it can be done with a pruta and a shava pruta, but Beis Shammai says that's not going to be a kedushin. It has to be a dinner or a shava dinner. So you have all these machlokes in between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai regarding the matters of ishus. Nevertheless, le'nimnu Beis Shammai milisa nashim mi Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai did not hold themselves back of marrying wives from Beis Hillel, and v'lo Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, and vice versa, the same as well. L'lamedcha, this is to teach you, shechiba v'reis noigim zeh b'zeh, that love and brotherlyhood, they behaved one to another, l'kayim hashanema, to fulfill what the pasuk says, v'ha'emes v'ha'shalom eha'ivu, that the truth and peace brings the love between them. That's the Tanakama. Rab Shimon says, nimnu hein min avadai, in a case that they knew for sure that this is someone that is not according to their opinion. They knew for sure, for example, let's go back to the case of Tzaras Erva. If Beis Hillel knew for sure that this girl was born from this Tzaras Erva that got married to the Yavam, and this is a Chi of Krisis according to them, if they knew for sure, then they were careful about that. They did not allow the children to get married to her. But regarding other cases, Rashi's pshat is menasafik means regarding, for example, the machlokes, the last machlokes, one of the machlokes that was mentioned here is when a person divorced his wife, velona imay bepundik. So that whole machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is based on a suffix, because we're not sure. He may have had a relation with her when he was with her privately in a pundik. So since that machlokes between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai is regarding something which is a suffix, so over there Beis Hillel allowed their children to get married to Beis Shammai and vice versa. That's Rashi's pshat. The Rishonim say menasafik means in a case where there's a woman that got mixed into a crowd of other people and you're not exactly sure which one is the one that's the daughter of this case that was a tzara. There was a taruvis. So you're not sure who she is. That's the Rishonim pshat. Okay, let's continue with Rashi's pshat. So this is what Rab Shimon says, that really in a case of a vadai, Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai were careful not to get married to one another. So the Gemara now will focus on the opinion of Rab Shimon. Now, if you're going to say that Beis Shammai followed and went through with on their own opinion, we could understand what Rab Shimon is saying, that in a case of a vadai, they held themselves back of not getting married to one another. But if you're going to say that they argued, but in the end they did not do like their own opinion, they did like exactly like Beis Hillel. So then Amai Nimnu. According to Rab Shimon, why would they hold themselves back of getting married to one another? So the Gemara asks on this, now v'tizbira, is this logical what you're saying? Nihi nami da'asu, even if it's true that Beis Shammai followed their own opinion, Bishleimi Beis Hillel nimnu, we could understand why Beis Hillel held themselves back of allowing their children to get married to the daughters of Beis Shammai, mi Beis Shammai, the chayav krisis ninu. Because according to Beis Hillel's opinion, what Beis Shammai is doing is a chayav krisis. A tzaras erev to get married to a yavam is a chayav krisis. So that's why they held it back. Umabzeidim, the children of Mamzeidim, the Beis Hillel, according to Beis Hillel's opinion. Why would Beis Shammai not allow their children to get married to the daughters of Beis Hillel? According to Beis Shammai's opinion, Beis Hillel is allowing the tzaras erev to go get married to anybody, and that's just a lav of lesia eishes hamesa chutza. So that's just a lav. The children are totally kosher. So why did they not allow, even according to Rab Shimon? So even if you're going to say that Beis Shammai followed their opinion, Beis Hillel followed their opinion, but still what Rab Shimon is saying, it does not really make sense over here. And it says the Gemara, Keda Amar of Nachman, so this is not a question because Keda Amar of Nachman by Yitzchak, like Rav Nachman by Yitzchak said, Le nitzracha ela l'tzara atzma. What we're talking over here is about the tzara herself. That Beis Shammai did not allow the tzara herself to go and get married to someone else because of this law, according to their opinion, that she can't go get married to whoever she wants. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak said this regarding something else, as we'll see, it's brought later in the Gemara. What he meant to say is, regarding the tzara herself, Beis Shammai did not allow the tzara to go get married to anybody because in their opinion, this is a lav. Okay? So now the question still remains. We see over here from Rab Shimon's opinion that Nimnu, that Beis Shammai did not allow the children to get married from Beis Hillel, and Beis Hillel did not allow from Beis Shammai. That means that Beis Shammai must have not been doing like the opinion of Beis Hillel. But the Gemara says, the Gemara has another question on this. Let's look at what Rab Shimon here said. He made a distinction between a vadai and a suffix. Fragt the Gemara, why when it comes to a vadai, so Rab Shimon says that Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai did not get married to one another. It's a vadai isser min ha-Torah. Suffix nami yisuruhu. Regarding a suffix, it's also an isser. We know that anytime there's a suffix da'iraisa, a suffix regarding a halacha min ha-Torah, l'chumra, you have to be machmer. So why regarding a machlokes, where there's a suffix over here, they did not hold themselves back of getting married to one another? Why would they not machmer min ha-Torah? So therefore the Gemara changes the whole pshat and what Rab Shimon said. Loi teime min ha-suffix. Do not say that what Rab Shimon was saying is that in the case of a suffix they didn't hold themselves back. Ele eime min ha-stam. Say that the case is min ha-stam, that usually they did not hold themselves back to get married to one another. The maidi lahu parshi, because they would notify one another if there was an issue and they would be pairish. But in a case where they notified them that according to your opinion this is a chiyav kares, so then that's the vadai that they were pairish. But otherwise, min ha-stam, they were not pairish because they knew they could rely on the Talmidim of Beis Shammai telling them. Now says the Gemara, Umay kamash malon. So then, what is Rab Shimon coming to say with this? So basically, what Rab Shimon is saying is that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel trusted one another, that there was love, brotherlyhood between them, and therefore they would not holding themselves back of getting married to one another because they trusted one another that they'll let them know if there's an issur according to their opinion. They had these fierce arguments in halacha regarding all kinds of subjects, but when it came to payil in life, they would let each other know what's right for your opinion and what's not. So, fragt the Gemara, if that's the pshat and what Rab Shimon is saying, if so, hainu reisha. That's basically Rab Shimon saying the same thing as the Tanakama. Answers the Gemara, you're right. Kamash Malon. But this is what it's telling me over here in the Braise, in this Lashon, the Kol Rab Shimoni, that it's really the whole entire Braise is Rab Shimon. The beginning, it explains, it brings all the cases, and it says they didn't hold themselves back. And then Rab Shimon explains that for a Vadai they were Pirish. When they let them know there's an issue, there was Pirish. But Minastam, they were not Pirish because they knew that if there was any issue, they would have let us know. So therefore, it's really all Rab Shimon. So we don't have any raya from this Braise.